Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's edition of Voices of Africa on Chatnite Africa. My name is Divine Nchamukong, and I'm anchoring this broadcast from Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. He was one of the pioneer television journalists shortly after Cameroon television CTV was created in 1985. Julius Wamey soon became a household name, in part because of his exuberant persona and the zesty flavor his presence brought, especially on the Sunday afternoon emblematic magazine program Tam Tam Weekend. But that's not only why Julius Wamey wowed television viewers and listeners of the esteemed Cameroon calling on national radio. His razor-sharp news commentaries and analyses oftentimes put him at odds with the political leadership of the country. Julius Wamey left Cameroon in 1994, and the Cameroonians since then have been wondering what happened with him. Ladies and gentlemen, it's with great delight that on your behalf, I welcome the ace journalist, the veteran, Julius Wamey, on the platform.
Thank you, Divine. Thanks for inviting me.
Julius, thank you for accepting to take questions on Chatnite Africa. Usually, you questioned people really hard. Today, you are the one to take hard questions on this platform.
And that's why I'm nervous.
It's said that what goes around comes around.
Indeed.
Julius, you were so endearing for many people, and so naturally, they're wondering where you have been all this time since 1994.
Yeah, well, 1994 was a very turbulent time, part of that transitioning period in Cameroon, which actually never happened. The transition never happened. But I guess to a certain extent, it happened in the sense that the media landscape changed. And so now I think, there's a lot more room for a lot more media. But in 1994, basically, I was fired without being fired. I was suspended from broadcasting. So I kind of kept myself busy editing the Cameroon Post. And that was in 93. Then 94, I traveled to the United States on a US government invitation and just never went back. I decided to stay and I actually was able to travel to the United States on the advice of friends of mine at the American Embassy who had heard that my life was in danger because of my activism, basically in journalism, because I really didn't ever get involved in politics as such. I did not belong to a political party for which I was not, friends with a lot of my friends who were, some of them who were heads of political parties, such as Nijon Frundi. He was not happy that I was not a member of his party, but I think I was doing a lot more for his party than I would have done as a member. Some of my friends actually joined his party. I didn't. I just thought as a journalist, it would be best. I would serve the people best. The boss, whom I call the boss, was the people out there, the ordinary people who watch and listen to television and radio, that I would serve them best by not being partisan. And I maintained that stance until I left the country. And
you were not partisan. You were not partisan. Why were you fired?
Well, at the time, basically every Anglophone was, by being an Anglophone, you were basically guilty of belonging to the opposition party. So But I thought, that was what the government thought. I wasn't going to live up to what they thought I was. I wasn't being, I wasn't, being anti-government or anti-opposition party. I was just being a journalist, reporting things as I saw them. And for that, I think more often than not, I fell out of favor with the government. But once in a while, the opposition did not like the way I reported either, because they also had their own problems, and I reported on them without, trying to give them, much of a headway. They were, as I am concerned, the potential successor to the government of the day, and I wasn't going to let them get away with what I thought was not right. So I criticized both sides.
Julius, somebody at Etudi at the time must have thought that you were ungrateful. I mean, you were biting the finger that fed you, weren't you?
True. But, that was a different time. Actually, I belonged to this group of journalists who started the English language service of CRTV. And I had just come out of school. Quite a few of us had just come out of school. So we had been out on training in France and Canada. And the training was still quite fresh, especially the Canadian one, which was the last part of our year abroad. And, we were practicing what we had just learned from school. You were supposed to report both sides, which I still find, is what should be applying today. And unfortunately, it doesn't, not in Cameroon, and sometimes not even here in the United States where we are. There's partisanship. Now you can see it in a lot of the public broadcasters. But back then, I think we set that standard of kind of objective reporting, and which surprisingly lasted for quite a while before things kind of went south. And
Julius, you attended École Internationale de Journalisme, ECJ, if my translation is correct. And there, I also went there. There, it is said journaliste de développement, development journalism.
Right.
Now, you came back from Canada, and you have this youth exuberance in you, the professional exuberance in you, but you forgot that you were also trained in an institution which had as mantra journalisme de développement.
Yeah.
We're doing the right thing, perhaps, but in the wrong place.
Yeah, well, this journalism, the development thing, it wasn't quite as emphasized in my day as it was, in your day. When you came in, it was much more of a mantra of the institution. But it was existing when I was there, but we understood it differently. We understood, especially with the foreign training, we understood that, we had to be objective in reporting in order to foster development in the country. You weren't supposed to be reporting for the government. You were supposed to be, we did a lot of investigative reporting that was embarrassing to the government, but at the time, kind of really surprisingly, they let us get away with it, and some government policies actually changed because of the reporting that we did. I remember quite 2 or 3 pieces that I did that were the minister at the time, or director general at the time, was not happy with it, but actually it got results in that some policies were changed.
Julius Wamey, you left Cameroon in 1994. Do you miss home?
Oh, sure. Everybody misses home.
What is it you miss at home?
From. Oh, man, I miss, well, for obvious reasons, I miss my family that is still there, of course. I miss my friends. Many, unfortunately, who are no longer there. They either left or they left the world, they left this life, and they're in the afterlife. But I miss the life that we live there. I remember when I went to graduate school here, the first thing one of our professors asked was what we miss most in our home countries. They were asking us, the foreign students, and my name being Wamey, which means that it was down at the bottom, alphabetical order. When they got to me, most people had talked about, the most obvious things what they miss: the food, the camaraderie, and all of that. And I was thinking of what to say that was really that I miss, and it just came to me as the teacher was coming to ask me to take my turn, and I said, one thing I miss is the laughter. The laughter. I remembered how we used to tell stories and laugh until your sides were aching. And one of my classmates, a white American woman, she's like, "You're from Africa and you're thinking of laughter. It's so there's so much hunger and disease." And I'm like, poverty. I'm like, lady, I probably was quite poor where I came from, but until I came here, I didn't realize that I was poor. I lived a very happy life, and I think that kind of characterizes all of us. Whether we come from poor, backward villages, people still have that capacity to enjoy each other and enjoy themselves.
You are watching Voices of Africa on Chatnite Africa. My guest this week is Mr. Julius Wamey. The name Julius Wamey evokes an epoch in Cameroonian Anglo-Saxon journalism, oftentimes in direct conflict with the nation's leadership, driven by a monolithic mindset. I want to ask you this, Julius. Who were the others with you in that era?
Yeah, there were quite a handful of them. But, at the top, I would put Eric Chinje. And a lot of people seem to have grown and forgotten the role he played in Cameroon journalism at the time. But he was not quite as open and in your face about the way we approached our reporting. But he was the enabler of everything that all of us were doing, especially what the government was displeased with. He would, he knew all of us individually, he knew our styles, he knew how we would approach a subject, and he would, parcel those subjects out based on each person's ability to treat that subject the way the public needed to be treated. And one thing you can be sure about was that we were very much in touch with our audience, with our viewership. Eric actually enabled all of us. And then there were people like Victor Piengome, with whom I had this love of using language to get away with saying things, to get away with saying unpleasant things very pleasantly. And he was the one actually who gave me the nickname of Salman Rushdie. It was Salman Rushdie. It was Victor Piengome who gave me that name because, and it could as well have applied to him because he had this style of using the English language to get away with things. And we actually got across to our audience who were really smart and who are really smart. They were able to tell what we were saying, read between the lines, as they say. And I remember the one time that I did this story about there had been this event in Bamenda where they called for the elite to come up to the governor's office. That was, I think, in 92 or so, during the turbulent period of political transition. And, people, boys in town, we used to call them truck pushers, they went to Queen Market and bought, secondhand bow tie or ties and shirts and wore them and marched up to the station as elite. They say, hey, who are you calling elite? We're wearing ties. We are elite too. And they came. So I had this commentary, which was really, really meant to be sarcastic, which people got. I said, what is wrong with Bamenda people? I did that on Cameroon Calling with Peter Isoka. And Peter, of course, was one of those two who also enabled us to do things, to get away with quite a few things. And so we did that commentary, what's wrong with Bamenda people? They said the elite should come and you guys, you show up in your cheap ties from Quaid Market and call yourselves elite, and you go in and inconvenience the governor and that kind of, tongue-in-cheek style. And believe me, after the meeting, the prime minister at the time, after our commentary on radio, the prime minister at the time, late Simon Chidiachu, he called us to his house, and was really pleased that, I really like the way you said, what's wrong with this, your country people, and you can imagine how when we left there and went to the quartier in Melen and told them what had happened, and people were just dying with laughter. They say, these people don't understand anything. Of course, the people understood exactly what we were doing. So there were those people. There was, I talked of Eric, I talked of Victor Epiengome, then and there are some of those people you would not suspect who were really quiet, like Epsingum, the late Epsingum, who was one of those, people who did their stuff very, very mildly, but very penetrating. There was Epsingum, who unfortunately left us. There was, of course, the old reliable Akwanka John D4, who also unfortunately left us, but who was quite abrasive, who was quite in your face. Then there was, of course, Chalindi Chia, who everybody remembers for his introduction to the evening news. There's talk that he used to say lies from Studio 4. I don't think that that's quite true, but it's a good story, and everybody likes a good story. So there were, those are some of the people whose names come to mind as being part of that intrepid group that, that kind of led the news.
You are watching Voices of Africa. Everybody has been looking forward to this broadcast because you've been missing for a long time and people were wondering whether you're still alive. Thank goodness you're here with me on Chatnite Africa, Voices of Africa. My name is Divine Chamukong. On this platform are three programs: Halfline, Voices of Africa, which is what we're watching now, and Family Matters. I want to thank my chief of technical affairs right now in Nigeria, who is ensuring that this broadcast is on different social media handles. I have to say that the names you have enumerated constituted the A-team of Anglo-Saxon journalism. But you were a bunch of nuisance to the powers that be. Julius, where do you draw the line between incisive journalism and biting the finger that feeds you?
One of the things that distinguished us was that we were that separate from the rest of the civil service, I should say, because in the end we were all civil servants, but we could make the distinction between the person who signed our paychecks or our pay vouchers, as they call them, and the person who actually owns the institution, which was the Cameroonian people. And the difference with us and the rest of the civil service was that we had a direct feedback we had feedback from our audience, who in this case you would probably call them our clients, our customers, but also our boss. They used to, people would write in or call in the bosses if they had complaints, or most of the time it was to call in and compliment us for doing a good job. So we had that as an incentive to keep on doing things the way we were doing them, and to realize that our real boss was the man on the street, not the guy in the office who signed the paycheck, money that was not his, money that was the money contributed by the audience out there. So that, I think, kept us going. At least it kept me going. I believed very strongly in that. And I used to say, look, you might think that the boss is up on the 8th floor or 10th floor or whatever it is, but my boss is out there on the street, and that's the one I intend to serve. So that's how it went with me.
Julius, you left Cameroon in 1994, and the sting in Julius doesn't appear to have left you. And this is Exhibit A, as they say in court. You have just published a book with the title The Vulture Family Convention. Let me repeat it. You have just published this book called and the title is The Vulture Family Convention. It's a 291-page novel of Cameroon life. Julius, who is your target audience, and what makes this book compelling?
Well, my target audience is really broad. It's general. Who, Cameroonians primarily, but anybody else interested in life in Cameroon, and anybody who wants to, or who has heard about the systems in Africa and the governance systems and the corruption that kind of pulls back on development everywhere, especially in Africa. And these are the people that I want to, open this up to. And actually, I wrote this as a novel because it is much more, I think, believable, even though it is the examples that I take in the book are quite outrageous. But I think that if you read the Cameroon press every day, especially the French language press now, it's almost like it's all about corruption. I mean, the stories have become so banal that they are published on a daily basis, and they don't mean anything much anymore to most people, I think, who read them, because otherwise they won't need to, keep publishing them. Now, what kind of got me started on writing this book was I went to Cameroon. I went to Cameroon in 2021 for the burial of a friend. And at the time, I was working at the African Development Bank in Abidjan, in the Ivory Coast. So I intended to stay for about a week. I was going to stay, attend my friend's funeral, and then, spend a few days with friends and family. And I got there and I got stuck because I couldn't get my COVID results to in time to get on the flight to Abidjan. The first time I didn't get the COVID result at all. The second time it came after my flight had left. I think the third time, and this, of course, every time I missed either the result or the flight, I would have to wait a week to take another COVID test. I'll have to take another COVID test and wait a week. Then I got a positive result, which meant I had to quarantine for another 8 days, 7 days, 8 days, until I spent almost a month, So I realized I was finally able to leave when somebody, pointed out to me that I could not just get a COVID result and go to the airport and fly out without paying some money to somebody. So I was finally shown who the money was supposed to be paid to. I had to pay and get back to Abidjan where I was working. And it struck me that this is a disease that is scaring everybody to death. And still, it has overcome corruption in Cameroon. No, people are more afraid of, losing out, getting extra money out of me than, giving me a fake COVID result, which I found to be really extraordinary. So when I got back to Abidjan, I was actually working on the book that I'm working on now. I already started working on that one, and I decided to leave that one and work on this one. And of course, that brought back all my memories of how rotten basically things are back home. And the rotten, especially when they talk about rot, those of us coming from rural areas, you think about rotting meat, maybe a cow that has been, killed by a snake, or cow skin that has been abandoned somewhere, and you remember the stink. And then what comes to your mind visually is the vultures that feed on the rotting carcasses. And for me, that just kind of illuminated a lot of things about why things are going wrong in the country.
You are watching Voices of Africa on Chatnite Africa. My name is Divine Chamukong. The phone line is now open. You can dial the number 240-603-7367. 240-603-7367. And ask Julius Wamey, the veteran Cameroonian television journalist, any question that you want. Julius left Cameroon after having been fired from the state broadcaster Cameroon Television in 1994. Julius, I have just seen a newspaper headline in Cameroon, and it reads, Honorable Etumbi Gladys hails President Paul Biya's foresighted leadership. How do you respond to those likely to accuse you of just being apocalyptic?
Well, I think I'm not really apocalyptic as such. I mean, mostly what concerns me about what everybody might, actually be forgiven for feeling apocalyptic about is the current state of the country, especially the civil conflict that's going on in the country now. And if that is the foresight that the lady is talking about concerning the president, then I think I would disagree with her there, because I don't think that one can credit what is happening to the country at the moment as the result of foresight. And when we talk about foresight, we're talking of in the positive. We're not talking foresight in the terms of predictions of what's going on at the moment in the country. And I think, it's basically a failure, a total failure of leadership that we're witnessing and what's happening in the country. Now, and I would want to connect this to the book and say that even the conflict that's going on in the country now is a result of corruption. And this is easy to understand. Corruption is a result of greed. When people who don't know what the meaning of the word enough means, and they are in charge, they don't know when to say enough. Remember, there was this Nigerian writer, I think it was Peter Ekwensi or something, who said, stealing is okay as long as the owner does not notice. But our own leaders have stolen so much that the owner, who is the Cameroon people, has noticed. and the Anglophones noticed it first. And unfortunately, at least as far as I'm concerned, unfortunately, some of them thought they could get back what had been stolen from them by force of arms, which I think is unfortunate, but it's taken us to where we are now.
Anybody who has read your book or listened to you in various instances, you would realize that you lay the blame squarely on the doorsteps of the presidency of the republic. Is this assessment correct?
Yeah, I mean, the president of the republic is the leader of the country, and whatever, he takes the credit when things go right, and he equally takes the credit when things go wrong. And I think that in this instance, especially with the civil conflict that, or the conflict that we are undergoing, civil war basically, he declared the war. He declared the war. So I don't know how else you can.
We'll come to the war. Julius Wamey, when you go to Cameroon and in any village or city, ask for directions, and somebody's asking for a bribe for you to pay before they can give you directions to where you're going. It just seems to be a widespread thing. So how is Paul Biya responsible?
Well, I think it has seeped into us, into our cultures, into our DNA. Basically, after 60 years, it's not just Paul Biya. We are the outgrowth of a system that started with colonialism, and it has extended, especially when we joined with the French Cameroon, who had a completely different approach to what is the public property, the public will, as they call it, and this has seeped into everything that we grew up knowing to be right and knowing to be wrong. We now have. I think I saw there was some video going around on the internet today, yesterday, a couple of days ago, about some guy who came from Cameroon and was driving a car here in the US, and the police stopped him and he was trying to bribe a policeman. Now, that, of course, is, everybody who has been to school knows that that doesn't work here. But the guy, he couldn't help himself. Now, I remember a friend of mine whose parents came to visit in the United States, and they brought some dry meat in their luggage, and the customs were going to throw it away. And my friend's mother, who is not educated, told my friend's father, say, give me some money, let me give this guy, let us go with the meat. And the father, who was educated, said, no, you don't do that here. And the mother said, some policeman know they take money, say, is there a policeman in this world who doesn't accept money? Now, that is a family that I know. They are a Christian family. They have, some of their children are nuns. One of their children is a priest. So they know, but this is for us no longer considered to be wrong. It is just the way life is. I know priests who have to pay bribe in order to perform their functions. I know pastors who have to do it. This is now part of our way of life.
I'm going to ask you the question again. How did we get there? How did corruption become a culture in Cameroon? Because repeatedly you say culture. How did corruption become a culture in Cameroon?
Yeah, well, as I say, it starts from the top. It starts from the top, and when you cannot, when the person at the top is corrupt, he cannot sanction the ones below them, because they are doing exactly what they are doing, what he at the top is doing. So it just keeps going down, and it gets to where you find that in the it gets to where in the village you have to maybe get a document, and the person whom you know, with whom you grow up seeing, who is in charge of that little office in the office where they in the village where they deliver documents, has to ask you to bring a chicken, or
maybe a bottle
that
of
kind of
whiskey.
quid pro quo. And it just goes down from there. I remember at one time when we had the radio or in CRTV, and this lady who was doing a program for children, Bekindive, she went and did a program for little kids in kindergarten. And we're watching that video when she came back, and one of them was like, "So what will you be when you grow up?" And one of the children said, "I'll be a magistrate." And Becky says, "Why?" And the child says, "Well, people give magistrates a lot of money when they are taken to court, and so that they can let them go home and not go to prison." I'm like, these are kindergarten children. These are nursery school children. This is what they now believe. How do you explain that?
The line is open 240. If you are in the United States, do not dial WhatsApp, dial the direct number 240-603-7367. 240-603-7367. If you have any questions for Julius Wamey, my phone line is open. Simply dial the number. If you're overseas, you can then do WhatsApp 001 yes. Yes. Here's a question from Chris Anu. Chris Anu, you can dial the number. You are in the United States. Simply dial direct number, not WhatsApp, please. 240-603-7367. And anybody who wants to dial, I can see comments from Beatrice Moma, Dr. Florence Njoyi. You can dial in. We want this to be very interactive. And I want to remind you that Julius Wamey has just published a formidable book. It's titled The Vulture Family Convention. The Vulture Family Convention. We'll come back to it. But what I can already tell you is that you can find this book on Amazon. The Vulture Family Convention by Julius M. Wamey. You can find the book on Amazon. Julius, the opposition does not resent the ruling elite for their corrupt ways, but they are resented for not having a chance to feed or to have a cut of the national cake. I am very sure that John Fundi, may so rest in peace, or Mr. Kamto will vehemently disagree with you.
Yeah, they might disagree, but this is based on their own platforms. They don't propose anything that's different from what we have. They don't it's basically asking us to change horses, not to change direction. And if somebody has any proof that the opposition has a real strategy for changing the direction of the country, I would like to see it. But right now, all I can base my comments on is what they say, and there isn't really much of a plan to get us out of where we are. It is much more a plan for them to take over, and if they have no plan to change direction, all I can assume is that they want to take over and do what the current government is doing, which is, keep us where we are.
Julius Wamey, corruption isn't anything new in Cameroon. Why this book? Why your book at this time?
Yeah, it actually, it isn't new, but people tend not to see the connection between corruption and underdevelopment. And I try to bring out examples of how corruption has kept us behind, has held us back. There are a lot of examples, and as I said, if you read the paper every day, you will see why corruption holds back development. Yesterday
Now,
and
just hold
today,
your thought
I was
there.
looking
There's
at
somebody on the
the
line.
online.
Just hold your thought. There's somebody on the line.
Okay.
Hello?
Hello?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
You are live on Voices of Africa.
Thank you.
Do you have a question from Mr. Julius Wamey?
Yes, I do.
Yes, the entire universe is listening to you.
Yes, so hi, Julius. Thanks so much for giving us the opportunity to communicate with you and see you once more after a long time. My question is, if you were made the leader of a group, a council that has been put together to alleviate or get Cameroon out of this desperate situation of bribery and corruption, what would your leadership style be? What do you think you would do first? Who are the kind of people you put in that group to be able to get Cameroon out of where it is today?
Where are you calling from, ma'am?
From Georgia.
That's a powerful question. You put Julius Wamey on the spot.
Indeed. Yeah.
Thank you, my friend, for calling from Georgia. Is that all about your question?
Yes, thanks so much. I actually, as Divine says, you put me on the spot because I've never actually thought of myself as being in a leadership position of anything of this magnitude. But I think what usually is lacking in all our organizations where you have or where you need leadership for such things to succeed is people say it every day, but it's recurring and it's true. Transparency. We don't have transparency in a lot of the things that we do. And usually when there is no transparency, where there is darkness, there is corruption.
Okay,
corruption
now hold it again
there.
The lines are ringing off the hook. Hello, this is, hello? You are, anybody on the line? It looks like there is someone on the line. Let me see. Hello?
Hello, sir. Divine, good evening, sir. I'm watching you live here, and I would like to ask Julius a question.
Yes, please. Would you kindly turn off or turn down the volume of any listening device you have around you?
Hello, can you hear me?
Absolutely, 5 on 5. I'm hearing you.
Hello, your phone is kind of muzzled up.
Okay, do you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. So your question, please keep it short. That way, other people have the opportunity to.
Oh my, it's so bad. Let me call back again and see.
All right. Okay, please. Yes, Julius.
Yeah. I was responding to the lady in Georgia about.
Yeah, sorry. I mean, the calls were coming in. Please just wait.
Sure.
Just wait for Julius to respond to this before you dial in. Go ahead.
No. As I was saying, it's usually because we lack transparency in a lot of the things we do. Usually,
just take note again, Julius. Just take note where you ended. Let's see if we can take this call. Hello.
Hello, Divine. Good evening. Chris Anu here. I've been watching your show for a while. A great show that you're having on with Julius. I just have one question for him.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Chris Anu, your question.
Julius, good to see you, sir. It's quite a pleasure seeing you. I have a question. If you were to go back to see our TV today, what would you like to do a little bit differently from what you, Kwanka Joe, Bohebe, Charlie Ditch, Kemle Kurz, and stuff? What would you love to do differently?
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chris Anu, for your question. Julius, your answer.
Well, that's a huge hypothetical, which It's not even in the realm of possibility anymore. But well, let me tell Mr. Anu, I would go back to what we used to be. It's amazing the way we keep kind of running away from what used to work and run towards what doesn't work. I mean, it's the whole country that needs a do-over, and the do-over is not necessarily going forward so much as going back to. Listen, I still remember when I was in the university. That was back in the 80s. We used to take the bus when you miss your school bus, the university bus. You would take the Sotuk, and it came on time. That's way back 40 years ago. Some of those things worked, and there's no reason why we should think that we can only move to what is new. We can move to what used to work, and it will work. And it applies all across the country. It applies in a lot of other domains, not only CRTV. And I think even then there was room for improvement, which we worked on constantly. But as I say, it's a lot better what used to obtain than what obtains.
So I'm going to give you 1 minute to continue your response to the lady who asked, if you're in a position of authority, what would you do different?
Yeah. Okay. I was responding to her, and I was saying that's a situation where I have never thought of myself as being in charge of some group to see how to reorganize and to change things in Cameroon. But if I were to, be dropped into that kind of situation, I would make sure that the first thing is transparency, and make sure that whatever is happening within that organization is done with the participation of those who are going to be impacted by whatever we are supposed to be doing. So I find it difficult because it sounds like an appointment kind of thing, and I've never been one for appointments based on some criteria that is not available to everybody else. If I don't, so that's why I don't even see why someone like myself would be part of that, or at the head or part of that kind of organization, because I think that my competencies lie elsewhere than those of somebody who has to, take it apart and put it back together. There are people, I know people who could do that kind of job very well, and I can make recommendations. There are people that we have covered in our Cameroon, recent history of Cameroon, people like Simon Monzu, for example, whom I think you have had on your show. There were, those are people who believe in the common good and work for it in a very transparent way, so that people know what they are getting. They know.
Julius, when you talk about financial impropriety or misappropriation of public funds by public officials, the question, or somebody who is not from Cameroon is going to ask, but are those people being punished? Punishment doesn't seem to work. We know of a certain guy, I think, was it director of salaries or somebody like the Minister of Finance, who is serving a 104-year jail term. If you look at the Nkondengi prison, there is a former prime minister. You can pretty much form a cabinet, ministerial cabinet.
Absolutely.
Yeah, with those who are there incarcerated. So it's not stopping. So what else?
Yeah, it's not stopping. And, I think you must be aware also that it is widely believed or known in Cameroon that a lot of those who are in Kondengi are those who not only committed the crimes for which they have been incarcerated, but who also are seen as enemies of the regime, because there are those who commit those same crimes and don't go to Konengi. In fact, I was reading today about a guy who inserted the names of about 2,600 fictitious civil servants into the public treasury and was receiving pay for all those people for several years, making more than 1 billion francs a month. And he was only being sentenced, and this is a story that dates from 2018 or 19, and he was only being sentenced to 18 years in prison today. You know, this has been going on for the past 4 or 5 years.
Julius, the debate has been whether you send those white-collar thieves, convicted persons to jail, or you recuperate the money and then let them go. What would you do?
I would do both. I would send them to prison and get the money back. Why should they go free? They stole, you know.
So how do we begin to fix this if imprisonment is not resolving the problem of corruption in Cameroon?
Well, you know, that is the question. I mean, because I think people have become so insensitive to people misbehaving, you know, civil servants and top officials misbehaving, stealing the country's wealth. And people have become so desensitized that they no longer see. And of course, with the mixture of politics and crime, it also makes people not have much faith in the justice system in Cameroon, because they see people who get away with doing worse things, and see people doing a man stealing a goat and being sentenced to life in prison, you know, a goat that's worth 10,000 francs, and somebody stealing 1 billion francs and not going to prison at all. People become kind of cynical about the justice system in the country. When you ask me about, well, how do we fix it, I have no idea.
You are watching Voices of Africa on Chatnite. My name is Divine Nchamukong, and I'm anchoring this broadcast from Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. Julius has published a book. It's now on Amazon. I think it's $15 or so, a copy. The book is titled A Novel of Cameroon Life, The Vulture Family Convention. The title of the book is A Novel of Cameroon Life, The Vulture Family Convention. This is a curious, I'm intrigued by this title, The Vulture Family Convention. Would you please explain that to us? You don't want to be a rambler like Julius, like Victor Piengome.
Like my friend Victor Piengome, yes. You know, I think it's Dr. Chris Fomunyo, who a lot of people, I'm sure he has been on your show as well. If not, he should be, because he's one of those other outstanding Cameroonians.
I'm looking forward to inviting him.
Yes, that I would recommend to be part of the solution in Cameroon, because he's the Africa director at the National Democratic Institute, and he's quite well known in Cameroon actually for his participation in the 92 elections and stuff. Anyway, I remember him at one time talking about the political class in Cameroon as a family, because it really doesn't matter where you come from. And the story is about the death and the burial of an influential Cameroon minister who so looked down on Anglophones, who is an Anglophone himself by origin, but so looked down on his people that he Frenchifies his name and becomes a super minister just because his masters, the Francophone masters, can use him to cover themselves when needed in order to, commit all kinds of other atrocities. So this family convention of vultures is feeding on the carcass of the country. And that's the imagery that I try to play with in the title of that book.
You mentioned the war that's raging since 2016/17. And if you're not from Cameroon watching this broadcast, some Cameroonians of English extraction took up arms to fight for the independence of what now are the northwest and southwest regions of the country, the former British Southern Cameroons. Julius Wamey, what's your assessment of the war?
Well, it is a catastrophe. It is for us, especially Anglophones. Our part of the country is being ruined. And this was predictable. And it was predicted that it was the wrong thing to do, to take up arms against a government and an army that we could not defeat. You could probably inflict some pain here and there, but you could not defeat them because we were not fighting. You're not going to be fighting just the Cameroon army. They don't manufacture arms. They get their arms from their supporters who are powerful Western governments. So, and then our people who led this insurrection, they misled the young men and women at home into this war that doesn't seem to have an end. Now, those young men and women are armed. It is easier to arm them than to disarm them. Now they have turned on each other and they have turned on the population. The government, the army seems to have, learned when to leave them alone. When they are doing the army's work for the army, they leave them alone and they kill each other. Or they turn around and exploit the people that they are supposed to be protecting. So as far as I'm an optimist by nature, but I am very pessimistic about what is going to happen to the northwest and southwest of Cameroon.
Both sides, Julius Wamey, both sides in the conflict are dogged in their respective positions. Mm-hmm. What's the compromise when Amber fighters tenaciously cling to their drive for independence and the government says, no way? How do we go from here?
As I say, I don't even know whether they because there's very little talk about independence now. I keep my ear to the ground back home, and there are very few people talking about that independence anymore. They seem even to be, from what I'm beginning to hear more and more of, is there's some kind of collusion going on between both parties, the fighting forces anyway, where the military actually gives bullets to the Amber fighters when they run out of ammunition, and so that they can keep the thing going. The people in the military are making a killing, making money out of it. The boys are making money out of it, and for them, it is the ideal situation. They are all making money, and they don't have any interest in independence or the end of the conflict.
If the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon were to have the independence that the fighters are looking for, mm-hmm. do you think that's going to be the magic bullet for the problems we've been talking about, tribalism, corruption, and so on?
Yeah, look, I was part of. I mean, as I said, I didn't belong to a political party, but I kind of sympathize with those of us who thought that a return to federation was the most feasible thing, because we did not think that complete independence would be possible. But now that we are where we are, I don't see, even if we were to gain independence today, I don't think that conflict will be finished, because, as I said, the fighting between the groups that are supposed to be those that are fighting to protect us is so fierce within the country and outside of the country. Among Chris Anu called us here, he was one of those people leading the insurrectionist movement, and the relationship between him and other leaders is as poisoned as it is back home.
Julius, you worked for the African Development Bank. Was it in Abidjan, Ivory Coast?
Yes, I did.
Good. What would you say is the level of development in Ivory Coast compared to Cameroon?
Oh my goodness. I mean, it's night and day, and it's not just Ivory Coast. It's a lot of the other African countries that I traveled to while working there. And it is a night and day kind of, and that is what amazes everybody. I mean, there's corruption everywhere in Africa, but somehow the other African countries manage to invest in their countries. But we kind of bleed our country dry and carry out no investments at all. So it is a complete anomaly. Cameroon is a complete anomaly as far as Africa. There's corruption all over Africa. Nigeria is known for corruption all over the world, but Nigeria is a fast developing country. All the other countries I traveled to, little countries, big ones, they all put Cameroon to shame.
We love Chatnite Africa.
You are watching Voices of Africa on Chatnite Africa. Thank you for loving Chatnite Africa. When we come here, we bring transformative content. That's why we have this colossus of journalism, Julius Wamey, on the platform taking questions today. He's used to asking people questions. Today, he is answering my questions. Julius, when I listen to Cameroonians talk about their problems, the fingers are pointed at France as a former colonial power. You've worked in Ivory Coast. Why hasn't France stopped development developing in Ivory Coast if France is at the root of the problem of underdevelopment in Cameroon?
Yeah, no, I mean, I really don't think that I would say France is at the root of underdevelopment in Cameroon. It would be maybe at the root of underdevelopment generally in Africa, in the Francophone African countries, but countries like Ivory Coast, like the West African Francophone countries, have defied that model. They have probably been more influenced by their Anglophone neighbors than we realize, because it's the same thing in Benin, Togo, Senegal. These are all countries that are kind of going ahead. I don't know whether it's a West Africa thing or it's because the Francophone West African countries are influenced by their neighbors who are Anglophone. Because I saw in Gabon, for example, it basically just a little bit better than Cameroon, even though they have more, they make more per capita, they are richer per capita than Cameroon is.
So what are the
population is small.
Let me stop you right there, Julius. Which other African countries have you been to?
Oh boy, I don't know. I've never quite put a number to it, but
approximately.
Yeah, maybe 14, 15, 16,
so
east, west, south.
What are they doing? You've been to Rwanda. You've been to
Zambia, Malawi,
So
Ethiopia.
what are these countries that are doing so well? What are they doing that the Cameroonian political leadership and Cameroonians as a whole are not doing?
Yeah, I think it's these are people who have the good of the country at heart. And I think people of my age and maybe older would kind of tell you that the regime that came before the current one in Cameroon had the good of the country at heart. I mean, they point to the evidence, which is the roads that we still have today were built back in the 60s and 70s. The ones that were built in the 90s have fallen apart because they were built in a corrupt manner and they were not built to last. Some of those countries, most of those countries, I think, and as you and I agreed, they are they are not free of corruption, but they at least do the minimum for their people. And I think that makes a difference, because corruption in Cameroon, the corrupt take 100%. In the other countries, they take, 50%.
Paul Biya has been the president of the republic for 40 years. Before that, he was the prime minister, and he had held senior level positions in the country even before being prime minister, and then president for 40 years. Mm-hmm. What in your mind would Paul Biya be remembered for?
I usually think about this and I say, well, he'll be mostly remembered for what he did not do. I mean, what he did do was already quite scary enough. I mean, the first Cameroonian president to declare war on part of the country. But, what the country is like today is thanks to his leadership. He can't blame this on anybody else. But then, I also think that, to be fair, we have to blame ourselves. We kept this thing going. We have kept it going for all this time. And he's there, as they say, people have the government they deserve. And we have kept him going there. And I don't know how this can be changed, but he and us both are to blame for what is the state of the country today.
Well, the statement that the president declared war on part of the country, or parts of the country's northwest and southwest regions, has been contested by those in government. And their argument is that if some people get up, take up arms, and decide to secede from the country and killing uniformed officers, the head of state is left with no choice but to react. Why are they wrong, and why are you right?
No, I wouldn't say that is completely wrong. It probably was the way he said it. Our guys who decided to take up arms, they had a lot of sympathy around the world initially, but they went and ruined everything because they started behaving the same way.
Just hold your thought there. I have somebody on the line. Hello, good evening. You are watching Voices of Africa.
Keep watching Chatnite Africa.
Yes, the entire planet is listening to you, sir.
Yeah, good evening, Mr. Nchamukong. What a brilliant program and what a brilliant show. And thank you for bringing one of my good journalists on your platform, Mr. Julius Wamey, good friend. And, we remember the good days at Cameroon Post. Some of us took our cue from him and other big guys like Akwanga Joe and D4 and all that. But I'm still reading your book, Julius. But my big question I wanted to ask you is, we talked about the corruption in Cameroon, Africa, and all that stuff, but what role do you see neoliberalism, which is unfettered capitalism in the world, and neocolonialism having on our societies and the institutions that we build in these places, which tend to filter resources into the hands of very few individuals that cannot be actually spread out to the entire society, and which breeds this corruption, it breeds stagnation, and leads us to where we are. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. That's a lawyer on the line. Since he didn't disclose his name, I'm not going to say who he is. Yes, your response, sir.
Yeah, no, I mean, a lot of these ideas and what you call them, movements come under different names and guises, neoliberalism, neocolonialism, and stuff. But they basically have the same. They basically have the same goal. They come for their interest. They don't come for the interest of our people. And whatever is going to be the solution to our problems will have to come from within us. It would not come from some movement coming from outside the country because, it is dressed in new clothes, calling itself something else. It's always going to be people who have their own interests at heart and not the interests of our people.
I was actually going to ask you a question in that light. But before I get to ask you the question I had actually told people who are CPDM militants that this program was going to air and invited them to come challenge you. And I had excuses left and right. Anyway, I just want to say that I try to do this as balanced as I really can. It was up to them. The microphone is open. The line is open. I do not screen any calls. As long as we stay respectful, you can simply dial the number 240-603-7367. It wouldn't matter to me if you are Frank Bia or Brenda. That'd be fine. I'll be glad to hear from you what that is doing at 8:20.
We love Voices of Africa. Keep watching.
And we will be on for a few more minutes. If you have a question for Mr. Julius Wamey, please dial the number 240-603-7367. And please remember to go to Amazon and look for this masterpiece. You think you heard anything tonight? Wait until you read that book, The Vulture Family Convention by Mr. Julius Wamey. Go to Amazon and search The Vulture Family Convention by Mr. Julius Wamey. It's a wonderful, wonderful read. Julius, there has been this all of a sudden gravitation by African leaders to Russia and China. They're moving away from the West to these countries. In your mind, and you've worked for African Development Bank for a long time, do you think the Russians, Putin, or the Chinese are the new Moseses or Messiahs for Africa? Either way, please explain your thought.
Yeah, before I went to the African Development Bank as a consultant, I worked at the World Bank for 16 years. So I am quite familiar with the approach taken by China of late and Russia following the war with Ukraine. China before the Russia-Ukraine war, they were kind of coming in to replace the Western countries that had dominated the economic life of African countries since independence, or and even beyond. But I think to quite an extent, the Chinese were seen by our leaders as a better alternative to the West because the Chinese are not very demanding when it comes to transparency, to non-corruption, to human rights, respect for human rights. And the Chinese companies that come to do business in Africa are basically just as corrupt, if not even more corrupt than our own leaders are. So they were kind of like the right people for whom those corrupt leaders thought they could do business. And that has continued up till today. If, the Chinese, they have their terms of doing business with Africa are some of the most stringent. The Chinese have the government and its companies, which I think it's almost like the same thing. In some countries, they have actually taken over and seized, state property like ports, airports, that kind of thing, as payment for loans, so that they are running those institutions. And this is the kind of country that our people think they can do business with. As for the Russians, we have known them in recent years because they came with with their fighting forces, with the Wagner group.
Please just hold your thought there. Somebody's on the line. You are watching Voices of Africa. Please, Julius, centralize yourself on the camera. Beautiful.
Okay.
Somebody's on the line. Hello.
Hello. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. I'm glad to hear from you. May I know who you are? What your name is, sir? But if you want to stay anonymous,
I'm calling from Richmond, Virginia.
Okay. Good to hear from you, sir. Do you have some questions for Mr. Julius Wamey?
Yes.
And what are the questions? Or question?
Just one question.
Okay.
How can we streamline or break down corruption in Cameroon? Does it mean that we have to kill every child up to the age of 2 years and bring up a new generation so as to limit the corruption in Cameroon? Yeah. Again, I'm called Abel from Richmond, Virginia.
Thank you so much.
We love Voices of Africa.
Does it mean that we have to kill
Julius?
every child?
All right, Abel, thanks so much. That's a frightening concept. Kill everybody to the age of 2. We'll still need somebody to take care of those 2-year-olds, and that somebody might be corrupt. So it will never end. No, I don't think we need to. I don't think we need to at all. I mean, we can break that chain beginning from a certain age with a certain people. Not everybody in Cameroon is corrupt, for goodness sake. I mean, there are some people who are not corrupt, not because they are inherently good, but basically because they have never had the opportunity to be corrupt. So they probably grow up the way, if they grow up the way some of us were brought up, you know, being taught, we went to, since our villages did not have government schools, so you could only go to school in a mission school, Catholic, Protestant, you know, where they taught the 10 commandments, thou shalt not steal, you know, thou shalt not do this and that. And those things stay with you for the rest of your life. So that's actually just kind of begins there. And believe me, if we took it as a mission, and anybody who comes after the current regime and decides that this is what they want to fight and take it as a mission, they can do it. They can do it. We can go on punishing those who are corrupt. We can set that example. In fact, if the justice system itself had not been corrupt, we would have been able to reduce corruption in Cameroon already, because those who were truly corrupt would be in prison, and those who were not, who were being accused falsely, would not be in prison as they are today. So that would have already helped. But if we take it as a mission to root out corruption in the country, we can start from the very young and grow it by generation, and it will work. Some people have done it. Some people have done it, and we can do it as well.
Julius Wamey. I probably can take one more call, 240-603-7367. Again, if you're wondering where Julius Wamey disappeared to, well, here we are with him tonight. And if you thought that the fire in his belly had fizzled, well, you got it all wrong. All you have to do is go to Amazon, search this book, A Novel of Cameroon Live, The Vulture Family Convention. A novel of Cameroon Live, The Vulture Family Convention. This book is on Amazon. I have to tell you, it's a compelling read, masterpiece. Once you open the first page, you will not keep it down. Again, I can take one more call before we go, but maybe at this point, I'm going to ask you for your last word, Julius, while waiting if anybody has a call to make. 240-603-7367. We'll soon be closing this program, but I can take one more call. All right, Julius, so what's your last word? What would you like people remember what are the nuggets you would want people to take home after having been sitting on this platform for now close to 90 minutes?
Well, I really am very sad, about our country. I find it difficult now to think about going home, because for me, going home, like every other person who comes from there, going home means going to your village. And I can't go to my village. I can't even go to the nearest town to my village. I can't go to, I basically can only go to Yaoundé and Douala. And for me, that's not a definition of going home. So I feel the pain of those who, like me, cannot go back home, do what they used to do on their vacations, sit with their friends from childhood, drink some palm wine and tell stories about, their old friends and laugh until their sides hurt. For me, that is the biggest regret I have. And, I've got my kids and I have got grandkids who love the place, who have been there and loved it and would like to go back, but it just can't be done. Unfortunately, I don't know when it shall end.
Julius Wamey.
Thank you!
That's how we draw the curtain on this week's broadcast, Voices of Africa. My august guest in the month of November has been yes, Wamey. He's been my senior in broadcast journalism. I've learned a lot from you. I have to be honest with you. The likes of you, Eric Chinje, 500 Fournier, Kwanka John DeFore, Epstein Gum, Eric Chinje. I could go on and on and on. You made the people want to kill themselves to go to the School of Journalism in Yaoundé.
I know.
Yeah. So thank you so much for coming. Again, let me remind everybody, please, if you're watching this on YouTube, kindly show us some love. Hit the notification button and the subscribe button. That way, once we come on air, you get alerted. This show is also on the internet, so it's being watched across the globe. www.chatniteafrica.net. It's on Facebook, it's on YouTube, and we'll be there forever.
Thank you!
My name is Divine Chamukon.
We love Chatnite Africa. Keep watching Chatnite Africa.
I know you love it. There's time to come and there's time to go. Every good thing has an end. Julius, thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Divine.
Tangi soon for Peter, soon for Tangi.
Oh, yeah, that's a good buddy right there.
Everybody is watching. Let me bring on the screen what Mr. Tangi Sumfo says. Great edition. Thanks, Julius. Congrats, Divine. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Pierre. Thanks so much.
Boy, there's so many people. Julius will go into the green room and respond to your individual questions. We will, and then we have shows on our website and on the YouTube channel. You have to go watch the show I did with Professor Nche Abeglizama, one of the best, one of the leading cardiothoracic surgeons in the United States. We have a show on our website they did on blood pressure as a silent killer, and then the military bases in your body. You wonder what I'm talking about? Well, I'm talking about your immune system. You've got to watch those shows and many others. I have shows on marriages and all kinds of stuff. Again, I want to thank all of you watching the show who are sharing and commenting and doing all kinds of stuff. I want to thank my producer, Roger Full, who is awake in Nigeria to make sure that this show is on our different social media handles. My name is Divine Chamukon. Thank you, Merci à tout le monde. Thank you, Julius, again. You have been phenomenal.
Thanks. It was great. It was great to have you.
I have to say that TV wizardry hasn't left you.
We love Chatnite Africa.
Alrighty, thanks so much.
All right. And I want to thank all the people who are supporting us on this platform. I have to tell you, Julius knows audiovisual broadcasting is expensive, extremely expensive if you have to put up anything like this. Dr. Elo, who designed this platform, thank you so much, my friend. He's African-American. Thank you. If you want your own platform designed to have this look, contact me and I'll hook you up with Dr. Elo. He in Virginia, in neighboring Maryland. And that's how we end this broadcast. Thank you so much for watching. And all right,
I'm coming.
I know you are familiar with this song.
We're gonna dance. We're gonna dance. I'm ready. I'm coming.
I will be coming back again.
I'm dancing. I'm dancing. We're gonna dance. We're gonna dance.
Thank you, Mr. Mumbalingwa, Director of Transmission.
We're gonna boogie, boogie, woogie.
I want to thank my friend Julius Wamey. Apparently he adores this jingle.
It's dynamite. I'm ready.
Thank you.
I'm coming.
I will be coming back.
I'm ready to get down.
But time I say merci à tout le monde. Bye.
I'm coming. I'm dancing.